All right, for 9 through 14, it says to find the zeros, but we have to do it by factoring. Right? That doesn't mean that you can't check it in your calculator, but you have to show the steps where you factored. And that's what we did in the last topic, topic 16. We factored out the GCF, we learned the difference of two squares, and we factored using the bottoms up method. So all three of those are going to be within these problems here, okay? So I'm going to work them, and then I'm going to show you how you can check it in the calculator. But you have to show the steps to be able to get credit. Okay, on number 5, we want to find the zeros. So we're going to basically set this equation equal to 0. Remember, f of x, we want it to equal either f of x, 0, or y. So we're just going to replace that with a 0. And we're going to look at our equation and see if they have anything in common. When you have two terms, okay, we want to look for the GCF first. Two-term problems, we don't use the bottoms-up method for. All right, so on this problem right here, okay, 5 goes into 5 and 5 goes into 35. So we're going to take out a 5. And they both have an x. And the smaller x is just the x. So we're going to take that out. And then we're going to put what's left over. Okay, so what do I multiply 5x by to get 5x squared? That's just x. And then what do I multiply 5x by to get negative 35x? And that would be minus 7. So these are our factors. Okay, distribute it back just to make sure. Okay, if you distribute that, you get 5x squared minus 35x, and that's what we have. That's what some of you did not do on your last test, and so you would have known your answer was wrong if you had just distributed it back. All right, so now at this point, we're ready to find the zeros. We're going to take our factors, and we're going to set them equal to 0. These are our two factors. Those factors are values that you're multiplying together. Okay, so this is what we're multiplying together. So I'm going to take this 5x, and I'm going to set that equal to 0. And then I'm going to take the x minus 7 and set that equal to 0. Based off the ones we did up top, you probably know what x is here. On this one, you're just solving 5 times what's going to give you 0. That one's pretty easy. It's just 0. But if you need to, you divide by 5. So x equals 0. So that's one of our zeros. And then the other one, remember, it's just the opposite. And you can go ahead and do that without having to solve it. So these are our two zeros, 0 and 7. And like I said, you can check it in your calculator. If you go to y equals and you type that in, 5x squared minus 35x, and you hit graph, you'll see that it crosses at 0, and then it crosses over here at 7. This one's kind of hard to see because it's real close to the y-axis, but you can kind of see it's thicker. So it goes this way, comes down, and goes back up through 7. So I know that my answer is correct. All right, number 10. We're going to first look to see if it has a GCF. 3 does not go into 13. 13's prime, so there's no GCF. So the first step is to multiply A times C. So when I multiply that, I get negative 90. Okay, now I don't take this 3 and put it out in front of parentheses because I don't have a GCF. So now I'm ready to have my 2 sets of parentheses. Okay, we're going to take the x squared and split it up. This is what I'm looking for. I go to y equals and I type in negative 90 divided by x. Make sure you put the correct sign. That makes a difference. Okay, go second table, and we're trying to find the pair that adds to give me 13. Okay, so I want to get positive 13. If I go down here, 5 plus negative 18 gives me negative 13. So I want the opposite of that. So if I go up here to negative 5 and 18 give me positive 13. So I'm going to use negative 5 and 18. So that's what's going to go in my parentheses. Negative 5 and then positive 18. All right, now to finish the bottoms up method, all you got to do is divide by what you multiplied by. So I multiplied by 3, so now I'm going to divide by 3. And if it reduces, this one does not, it just says stays 5/3, This one does. 18 divided by 3 is 6. And if it reduces, we would move the bottom number up. But when we're trying to find the zeros, this is the easy part. We've already got it where all we have to do before we don't have to do this step, because if we were to solve it, we would end up having to move it right back down. Okay, so we don't want to do the bottoms up, that last final step. At this point, all we have to do is take the opposite, just like we did on 6 and 7. So the opposite, what's going to make this equal 0? That's going to be positive 5/3. So positive 5/3 minus 5/3 equals 0. And then over here, what's going to make this equal 0? And that would be -6, because -6 plus 6 would be 0. So these are my two answers. Okay, so it's the bottoms up method, but we don't actually have to move the bottom number up. If we do, we're just creating more work for ourselves. So after we divide and we simplify, all we have to do is the opposite. Our zeros are going to be the opposite. All right, number 11. Okay, we want it to equal 0. So you have f of x, so we can just replace that with a 0. I'm just going to write that in there. And we don't have a number in front. They don't have x's in common because there's not an x here. So all we have to do is find factors of 64. Pen's not writing. Factors of 64 that would give me -16. So if you need your calculator, you would do 64 divided by x. And you're looking for factors that give you -16. So I need negative numbers. And -8 and -8 give me -16. Okay, so I do my two sets of parentheses. Let's switch pens, that's not working. This is x minus 8, x minus 8. I didn't multiply by anything, so I don't have to divide. Okay, these are the easy ones. So all we have to do is the opposite. You'll notice these are the exact same. Okay, so I'm only going to have 1 0. It's a problem like number 8 up here, where it just has the 1, okay? So what do I subtract from 8 to get 0? Or subtract 8 from to get 0, and that would be 8. So x equals 8. You don't have to write it twice. That's just your 0, okay? All right, number 12. First thing we're going to do is look for a GCF. Doesn't have one because 2 doesn't go into 17. So now we're ready to do the bottoms up. Okay, now all of these that I've already done so far, I showed you on number 1, but number 10, or sorry, number 9, number 10 and 11, all you gotta do is plug that in y equals and look at the graph and see where it crosses. Okay. All right. So we're going to have to do bottoms up because we have a number in front. So 2 times 8 is 16. So we want factors of 16 that are going to equal 17. Well, that one's pretty easy. 16 times 1. Let me make that in my way. 16 times 1 is 16, and when you add them, you get 17. So x plus 16 and x plus 1. Again, multiply it, you get 16. Add it, you get 17. Now we're going to divide by 2. Divide by 2, and we're going to simplify. So this simplifies to 8. And this simplifies to, it doesn't simplify, okay? But remember, we're not going to move the bottom number up. At this point, we're just going to do the opposite. So the opposite of this is -8, and the opposite of this is -1/2. All right, 13, okay? 13 does not equal y, it does not equal f of x, it does not equal 0. So that's the first thing we need to do. And to do that, we're going to add 8 to both sides to get this side equal to 0. This can't combine with x squared or x, so we're just going to have x squared minus 9x plus 8. So now we have a problem just like number 11. Okay? All we have to do is find factors of 8 that will add to give me -9. And that we're going to use -1 and -8. When I add those, I get -9. When I multiply them, I get positive 8. So x minus 1 and x minus 8. I didn't multiply anything, So I don't have to divide. Now I just take the opposite, x equals 1 and x equals 8. And again, you can plug that into your calculator right here, plug it in and graph it, and you'll see that it crosses at 1 and 8, so you can check your answer. All right. All right, 14, again, just like 13, you got to get everything on one side. So we are going to have to make this equal to 0. So we're going to have to subtract 22 from both sides. Here's a shout out to Miss Vaughn. She'll like this one. The left-handed people in the world comprise, 11% of the world's population are left-handed. That's for you, Miss Vaughn. All right, 9x squared minus, I can combine these together because they don't have x's, so that's 25 equals 0. There's no GCF because I don't have anything in common, but what I have is a perfect square minus a perfect square. So it's the difference of two squares. Okay, so we're still going to have our two sets of parentheses. We're going to take the square root of 9, which is 3. So we're going to have 3x and 3x. And then we're going to take the square root of 25, which is 5. And we're going to have plus 5 and minus 5. All right, then we have to set those equal to 0. Okay, now I'm going to go through and show you the long way on the first one, and then I'll show you the short way on the second one. So I need to set that equal to 0. So 3x plus 5 equals 0. So I have to subtract 5. Pen's not working. And that gives me 3x. Hang on just a second. 3x equals negative 5. There we go. And then we have to divide by 3. So on this one, x equals negative 5/3. Now, that's the long way. If you'll remember, we do bottoms up. We move the bottom number up. So all we have to do is move the number back down. So I'm going to move this back down, put it underneath here, and then all I have to do is the opposite. What's the opposite of negative 5/3? Positive 5/3. So my other 0 is positive 5/3. Okay, so remember, if you have something in front of your x, that means that at some point they did the bottoms up. So you just need to move it back down, and then you can just take the opposite. Okay, let me show you real quick just another example of that. So if I had 2x minus 1, okay, I can move this back down right here, and then I can just take the opposite. The opposite of negative 1/2 is positive 1/2. So that's the shortcut. Okay. Again, you can plug them in your calculator and see where they cross and get your answers that way. But you have to show your work to check your answer. You can put it in the calculator, check your answer, but you do have to factor it.